Hey, this is Sasha, and today I want to share with you one of the tools that I use within my business. It's the cell phone and the cell phone provider. So it's a pretty common thing as far as having a cell phone or a cell phone provider to communicate amongst your business. But I'll share with you what I use, why I use it, and just some of the concepts behind my review and personal take on the Project Fi and the Google Nexus 5. So if you take a look at this phone, I actually got this phone about 6 months to 8 months ago. Now, I knew Google was going to release a new plan and a new phone here coming out shortly, but I wanted to get this phone and plan for a few different reasons. The first reason is because I typically like older phones. There's 1 year old to 1.5 year old I find is the sweet spot. That goes the same thing with my camera equipment. That goes the same thing with my computer equipment. 1 year old is a nice sweet spot. Same thing with vehicles. I don't want to buy the newest. And you might be wondering, well, why is that? Well, the fact is if you look at the Samsung phones that recently came out having some fire problems and just some issues, that's why I want to avoid all those headaches. So I typically go with one model older on the phone because it's good enough for me and my needs. This phone has some pretty good specs on it. It's not the top of the line, but it has some decent specs. There is a larger version called the 6P. And that phone is a little bit better, but it's a little bit larger and it's not something I want to carry around in my pocket. I like things small, nice and simple, and it does its business and work really well. But you might be wondering, why is it that I like this for business or business use? Well, there's a couple of main factors, and if we hop on over to the Project Fi website, I'm going to share that with you. All right, so let's take a look at the Project Fi website and share with you some insight. So here it is. Here's the basic Project Fi website. And when you go and take a look at it, you see it's a wireless service from Google. I mean, that's basically the whole thing. If you want to watch the intro, you can, but I'll just share with you some insight. So number one, the way that it works is it shifts from multiple networks. So they make deals with T-Mobile and Sprint at the moment, and it just hops from one tower to the next. So overall, between two cell phone providers, you're able to get even more or further coverage than just from AT&T or Verizon. So that's ultimately one of the benefits and one of the good things. So it allows you to tower hop, and even in Wi-Fi locations, you don't have to click the Wi-Fi connect, Wi-Fi login. It automatically connects you to Wi-Fi in certain areas. Just right away connects. You don't have to do anything. So you can take a look at that if you want to read a little bit more insight. But the next thing is you can also have, well, simple plan, yes. But here's the travel part. Okay, so when you go into traveling, it's still $10 per gigabyte. So if you go to the international rate, you're still paying $10 per gigabyte, just like you would at home. You can still access high-speed data. I find that most of the time it's 3G internationally. As I've traveled, like I said, I've never really had trouble internationally with this phone. Sometimes you'll get 4G, but a lot of times it's 3G, but it's more than fine as long as you're not downloading a lot of data or if you're just not watching videos as you drive. So, but in general, no issues, no trouble. And when I signed up, it used to be 120 countries. Now it's 135 countries. So they keep adding new countries as coverage becomes available. I haven't had trouble, in Canada absolutely anywhere as far as where I tried it. As far as on the east side, between Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Sudbury, all those areas in Canada, no trouble. Even in pretty much country roads, we haven't even had trouble with this phone. So in either case, a lot of countries, one of the, I guess, the downsides behind this is the phones. Now, they did come out with this new phone. Of course, as you know, I'm not on the new phones. I'm always using the old phones, 1 year old, typically, or the previous model, to make sure that all the bugs and kinks are out. That's just me as a business owner watching my risk. I just don't want the newest phone because if something happens, there's a lot of headaches. So I would rather go 1 year older than brand new if there's trouble. But they got the newest phone right here, which is basically very comparable to the Apple phones. In fact, some people say it's even much better. And in my opinion, it is, because you're not binded or bound like you do with some of the Apple devices to use it this way or that way. So amazing if you look at the reviews. And again, it can tower hop and switch. Of course, that's the Pixel phone, but the 6P and the 5X is the previous year's phones, and you can get them for $399 or even $199 for the 16 gigabytes, of course. So anyway, so there's some of the things that are included with these with this phone. If you really look at some other things that I like about this is the plan. So looking at the plan right here, you can see that it's basically $20 per month, and with a group plan, you can add a friend or family for $15 a month. So you have unlimited talk and text, unlimited international texting, use your phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot, which again, if you're international and you need to use your laptop, you can use this phone as a hotspot and connect to it if you don't have Wi-Fi in your hotel, which again is kind of rare these days, but you still have it. If you're driving, you need to pull over and you need to use this phone and you need a laptop to use it for, let's say, I don't know, sending an email, sending a document, whatever it is, you can make this a hotspot without any additional apps or applications. So it works really well. And then let's see, you get credit for the unused data. So that's the other great thing about this phone is if you're in an office setting, if you're in this using this phone just simply by your desk from time to time and you're on Wi-Fi and someone calls you, it doesn't use your data. If you need to look up something, it doesn't use your data. And if, for example, let's just say you use just half of your data, so you can see here it's basically $10 per gigabyte. So if you use 500 megabytes, so you're using half of that, you get $5 back. And for me, I might get $9 back every single month because most of the time my phone is at the office unless we're traveling internationally or something to that effect. We're on a road trip. Most of the time I'm not watching videos on my phone. So as a business user, that's not what I'm doing. But in general, if you're using this phone for business, you can see that if you're not using a ton of data, you're going to get a lot of your money back. So it's basically the data that you use. So it's $20 plus $10 per extra gigabyte, but you get that back. So, so for example, my bill on average is $25, $23. And then of course, as you add people on, it's $15 per person. And again, the same thing, $10 per 1 gigabyte, but you get the credit back. So it's really phenomenal the way that it works. And for business users, you can use it internationally. That's ultimately one of the great things. And from tower hopping, you can't really beat that plan. The main disadvantage is the phone selection. And if you're okay with a fairly good phone, it's not going to be the best. Fairly good phone, the plan just kills it and blows every other plan out of the water. Now, the other thing that's really great if you take a look at this billing system is everything's really easy from the app. And basically, if you go into their system right here and you just tap one of these, you can see the bill broken down and the credit for unused data. So basically for that month, and this was also one of the months where I think we were even international in Canada, I paid $11.86 because I barely use any data since most of my business and most of the time this phone is actually just sitting by my side as I'm working or doing things. As far as service and reliability goes with this phone, I haven't really had too many problems. With the phone, I've had 1 to 2 little problems in the last 6 months. Basically, the phone was freezing up because I was using it for GPS, and all I needed to do was really restart it, and it was all fine. As far as the service is phenomenal and fantastic. I've had to call the representatives once or twice to move over a few family members over to this plan for that exact reason, because I love it so much. But in general, I mean, when you reach out to them, it takes 1 to 2 minutes. As far as cell phone quality is concerned, you can talk on this phone even if you're on airplane mode. So if you're international, in Canada, in Europe, I've taken calls with this phone internationally just being on Wi-Fi. And the first time it happened, just basically ran the phone because I was only on Wi-Fi. I was on airplane mode, but on Wi-Fi. And the call came in, and I'm wondering, why is this call coming in? But that's the great thing about this phone, is that the calls will still come in even if you're on Wi-Fi, if you're internationally. And it doesn't cost you anything extra. That's the amazing part. And that's why for business, it makes it a really powerful phone rather than paying $5, $10 a minute, if you're overseas. So you talk as much as you want as long as you're on Wi-Fi. And even if you're not on Wi-Fi, it's still very cost effective and affordable to get things done on business. Even if you're traveling, let's just say you're a solopreneur or you maybe have one or two people helping you on your business, and maybe you're watching a show, or maybe you're at a park internationally in Europe, you can go ahead and leave this phone on its cell data, and it uses the same cell data. It's $10 per 1 gigabyte. And if you need to send an email real quick, you can do that. You can do that if you have an emergency, and it's not going to cost you anything extra as far as your data is concerned. Whereas many other carriers, you're paying a fortune for just 100 extra megabytes overseas or internationally. That's huge for a business owner. So if you're a business owner, you have a few employees, that's massive when it comes to international coverage and international use. As far as locally in the USA, I used to be on T-Mobile, and you have one or two drop calls, and with this one, the same thing. Because it bounces from tower to tower. You have Sprint, you have also the T-Mobile, and it'll hop from tower to tower depending on what's a better service. And I've had one or two drop calls, but again, nothing major or nothing significant. But as far as the added benefits, just outweigh some of those little negatives that happen. Of course, the biggest downside with this is that you do need to have some of the Google phones, which is the Nexus 5X, which is this one, the 6P, which is a little bigger. Again, these are about a year or two old phones, but they still work just fine. There's nothing wrong with them. And of course, you could get the new Google Pixel phone that we shared earlier. All right, so there you go. That's my insight and take on the Nexus 5X along with the Project Fi service. Great service. Highly encourage it for business professionals. And even if you're not and you don't even travel that much, it's still, if you're not a big data hog, if you're on Wi-Fi often, you just use your cell phone here and there, fantastic cell phone, fantastic cell service. You might get one or two drop calls every couple of months here or there, but in reality, just the benefits. If you ever travel anywhere, if you go someplace, and you're on Wi-Fi a lot, you get your credit back. There's just so many additional benefits to it that it's just fantastic, especially if you're a business owner. Now, if you want to see some of the other business training videos that I have or business reviews, then go ahead, click this button right here. Sign up to my newsletter list, and that way you're notified as I release new content and new material. But if you want to keep watching some other cool videos, then go ahead, click this thumbnail right here, and you'll continue watching some of my other videos. In the end, remember to do what you love, contribute to others, but most importantly, live life abundantly. I'll see you next time.